Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Double Play. Jack and I are back together after Jack's little absence, but we've got baseball to talk about. Baseball did not wait up for us, so we've got to talk about it. Division series is over. The LCS is underway. The Padres and Phillies are actually playing as we speak.
Let's get into it. There's another home run.
4-2 now?
4-2. Josh Bell just hit a solo homer.
Oh, wow. So we got ourselves a game. But so today we're going to be doing a crystal ball. Instead of what we did last week where we kind of previewed each series and then recapped each series, we're going to see what we see in the future for the 8 teams that played in the divisional series round while kind of giving our predictions for the championship series that is now underway and the World Series a little bit as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. Baseball.
I think that's the best way to put it. And I'm finally, I'm happy to be back. Had to miss last week. Not only was I not on the episode, I didn't speak pretty much all of last week. Tonsils felt like little blueberries in the back of my throat. It was just not a fun experience. Didn't talk to anyone. Didn't really get to do any work or anything like that. So it was not fun. Got a lot of chance to watch some baseball, though. That was one of the craziest divisional rounds ever, and we're not going to go series by series and recap it, but looking into the future of each team, we can get into the crystal ball segment. Basically what we're going to do, little crystal ball in front of you, figuring out what we see in each team's future, including some things that are going to happen in the championship series or the offseason or even further beyond. We're going to go series by series, split up the 2 teams, and then say, what do we see in that team's future? So for me, when I look into the crystal ball for the San Diego Padres, who just beat the Dodgers in 4 games, absolutely lighting up San Diego, I see the formation of one of the league's best bullpens. They had so many guys just have fantastic seasons for them. Robert Suarez, Nick Martinez, Steven Wilson, Luis Garcia, Tim Hill, Pierce Johnson, Adrian Morejon. There's so many names that had fantastic seasons for the Padres, and I think one key part of the Padres bullpen, as you as a Dodgers fan noticed this series, they all throw gas. Outside of guys like Tim Hill, who are more loopy, throw kind of slow, they have some just fire breathers in that bullpen who come in, they throw cheddar, and they get people out. A lot of strikeouts. Against the Dodgers, the bullpen only allowed 1 run and 6 hits in 16 innings. Maybe the key reason why the Padres moved on to the National League Championship Series, and then you look at the back end. Someone who had a tough season, but really locked it down for the Padres is looking like the closer that we know and fear, Josh Hader. Since September 7th, 13.2 innings pitched, no runs, 5 hits, 2 walks, 20 strikeouts. I think the Padres are going to have one of the league's best bullpens in the years to come.
Yeah, it was tough to watch. Dodgers just went quiet on offense. And for me, with the Padres, I see a team that's going to be pretty dangerous for the next few years at least. I mean, they're doing this right now without Tatis, which is crazy to say. I mean, that was their star player going into the season. I mean, Machado's doing it great, or he's been great in his absence. Obviously, an MVP candidate. And then you add Juan Soto that with 2 more years of control, and then obviously, like you talk about the bullpen, that's going to be great for a few years. That's a dangerous team going forward. The only question mark is going to be the pitching depth. You've got Darvish is aging; he only has 1 more year of control. Blake Snell and Mike Clevenger are free agents this year. You traded Mackenzie Gore to get Juan Soto. So the starting pitching depth is going to be a little bit of question mark that they'll have to address going forward. They do have Joe Musgrove locked up for a while now, though. But I see a team that's going to be dangerous, going to challenge the Dodgers for the division. We thought that would happen last year. They ended up missing the playoffs. And then this year, Dodgers kind of ran away in the regular season. But I see a team that is going to be dangerous in the postseason and then maybe make a run at that division crown next year.
Yeah, and of course, the Dodgers have won the NL West for so many years. Outside of last year, it kind of run the division. The Padres, if you have a 3 healthy, non-juiced, back in the lineup trio of Manny Machado, Juan Soto, and Fernando Tatis, like those 3 players alone can compete with pretty much any team in the league. And the Padres, I think, show that maybe they're turning a corner by actually being able to beat the Dodgers for once. They came in, they had lost it was like something in the last 20 games. They had just been absolutely dominated by Los Angeles, and they come in, they take 3 of 4 to beat the Dodgers in 4 games in just a 5-game series. So the Padres right now playing in the National League Championship Series. We both picked the Phillies going into the series. The Phillies ended up winning Game 1 in San Diego. They scored 4 runs in the bottom of the second today when we're recording this, but so far San Diego's responded in the bottom of the second against Aaron Nola with 2 solo shots. So the Padres, their season's not over yet, but I definitely think that you're right. They can be a dangerous team going forward. And we always thought that was the potential. They kind of, they just kind of trudged along in the regular season, but they've really turned it on in the playoffs. They've lit up San Diego. The fan base is just so electric. So I think there's a lot of stuff it's good stuff to come, I think, for San Diego in the future seasons. Your Dodgers, though, who lost to the Padres in 4 after the 1-seed bye, who won 111 games in the regular season and only 1 in the playoffs. When you look into the crystal ball for your guys, what do you see?
I see a very important offseason coming up. There's a lot of question marks going into this. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer. That's me basically saying I don't see what's coming. But there's going to be a lot of change coming is what I do see. You've got Trey Turner, free agent. You've got a decision to make on Cody Bellinger, who rumors, they don't know what they're going to do with him yet. Clayton Kershaw he's a free agent. Close to retirement. He says he wants to play again, so you feel like that's a must to bring him back at this point. Justin Turner, you got a club option there. You're paying him quite a bit of money he's a good third baseman, but he's getting $16 million. Do you want to try and decline that and re-sign him to a shorter deal? Is he going to retire? Another question mark there. Your other young guys, like Julio Urias and Will Smith, guys like that, you're going to have to pay them extensions at some point. That's something to look for. And I think what their focus needs to be on, and kind of the issue that we've seen in the last few years, they have the talent to be a great regular season team. So they need to add players with kind of like a track record maybe for performing in the postseason, and they had that in previous years. Seager went off in that 2020 postseason. Jocktober they had before. Kike Hernandez always came up with some clutch hits, and it seems like that's what they lacked this year. They would get guys on base and kind of lack the clutch hit. So maybe when you're signing players, maybe you focus on that. But I see some moves needing to be made for the Dodgers this offseason.
Yeah, when I look into the crystal ball for the Dodgers, if I'm being honest, I see another disappointment next year unless something gets changed. And I think that, obviously that makes sense, but they continue to win 100-plus games and then just fall short in the postseason. You can believe whatever you want about the 2020 season. I think you can't say that it doesn't count, but I don't think that you can value it the same as a full 162-game World Series with a full postseason, everything like that. I don't think that they're the exact same thing, and when you don't include that World Series win, the Dodgers haven't won a full season World Series since 1988, and they've never won a World Series in a season where they won 100-plus games. So they keep getting bigger, badder, and better each offseason, but they just haven't been able to get over that hump. So I just think something needs to change or the results won't. You've had just so many years where this has been a consistent, thorn in the side of the Dodgers, where ever since they hired Dave Roberts going into the 2016 season, they've gone 2016, 91 wins, lost in the championship series. 2017, 104 wins, lost in the World Series. 2018, 92 wins, lost in the World Series. 2019, 106 lost in the DS. 2021, 106 wins, lost in the CS. And then this year, 111 wins and you lose in the division series. So I know they're just such a fantastic team. And I was talking with one of my USC football coworkers yesterday, is like, are you going to punish a team just because they're always right there and they haven't been able to get it done? Like, just because they're a consistently 100-win team doesn't mean that that's bad. Like, why are you punishing a team for consistently being there? But at the same time, eventually you're going to win the National League West, and are you just content with being there? I don't think so. So I think something needs to change, whether that's changing the energy around the clubhouse, like you mentioned, going after players that have, better playoff track record, or, a little bit more underdog guys instead of just going after the best players to win as many regular season games as possible. Or if it were up to me, I think you got to fire Dave Roberts. Of course, this has been discussed for a long time. People have differing opinions on it. He does make some poor bullpen moves, which we just saw in this last series. But then again, he also has led a couple 100-win teams. But I just think when you look at it, you're giving a manager the best roster, the best team, one of the best GMs in baseball. He's had so many years, just hasn't gotten over the hump. Outside of the 2020 year, which you can believe whatever you want, the Dodgers have not been able to get over the hump with Dave Roberts, and maybe it's not his fault, but I think something needs to change, or else you're going to have the same results that you've had for a while now.
I feel like, and this is just a quick kind of sidetrack question to ask you. You mentioned all those records. The 2017 I want to focus on. If that says 2017, 104 wins and wins the World Series, in which they lost in 7 games against the Astros, so we know what was happening, is this narrative different and like drastically different? Is it like, okay, I'll give up. I do agree with the last 3 full seasons, 19, 21, and 22. There's got to be something better there, not even a World Series appearance in those 3 seasons. So I don't disagree with that. This is a disappointment, but I'm just curious. And if they win in 2017, it'll forever be a question mark. How different is the narrative surrounding the Dodgers run and Dave Roberts in general, and just the team in general?
It would clearly, he'd have something to point to as like, no, look, this is like, we did this. But at the same time, I think focusing on those last 3 full seasons, I don't know, like, I don't think that Dave Roberts can look and say like, hey, look, I won us 2017 and I didn't lose us these years. Like, I just feel like the roster has been so good the last 4 years. So it's kind of like 3.5, the last like 3.5 years, that you could throw any manager in there and you might see the same results, if not better, because Dave Roberts, as I think you and I would both agree, has done things to sink the Dodgers in certain games, like bringing out Yency Almonte in a 0-1 count or a 1-0 count. It's like there's decisions that Dave Roberts make that I think sets the Dodgers back and gives them something they have to make up for. I just think even if it's not his fault, like something has to change, especially you just look at those last 3 full seasons. You can't win over 106 games in the last 3 full seasons and not make it to the World Series and only make it to the Championship Series once. Like, that's just unacceptable.
I do agree with it, but also if you win in 2017, then you're looking at 2 World Series wins in 7 years as manager, so it's hard to knock that. But yeah, I do agree with it. And let's move on to the Phillies, which is the other series in the National League. They beat the Braves, the defending champs, in 4 games, and they kind of made it look easy a little bit. They won game 1, lost game 2, and kind of handled games 3 and 4 at home to win that series in 4. Jack, looking into your ball, what do you see for the Phillies going forward?
Now, this may seem like low-hanging fruit considering they're already up 1-0 and they're up 4-2 in the game in game 2 today, but we've had some schedule mix-ups where we haven't been able to record until today. But I see a trip to the World Series, as crazy as that may seem, for the Phillies. I don't think I need any stats to describe what I've seen from them so far this postseason. They're gritty, exciting, passionate, energized, and they're out to prove us and everyone in baseball wrong. We literally had an episode a couple weeks ago when it looked like the Phillies were going to miss the playoffs. They got some help from the Marlins beating the Brewers. They sneak their way just barely into the postseason, and they've wiped everyone. Like, they've looked like the best team in the postseason. They're crushing baseballs. Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola are just shutting people down on the other side of things. And everyone is contributing. They look like they're having the best time. They look like they're having the most fun. They look like the most gelled team out of any postseason squad. And they're already up 1-0 on the Padres with a chance to win Game 2. I think the Phillies are going to the World Series, which is just so crazy considering how many times this year you could probably count that team out after firing Joe Girardi, after having a tough stretch looking like they might miss the playoffs, and the Brewers sneak in, be in the last seed, and I think they're going to go to the World Series, it's just crazy, but I'm excited for Philadelphia. They've earned this. I mean, they clearly want it more than anyone in the National League. I think they're going to the World Series.
For me, this ball's a little bit blurry. This is another one where it's hard for me to tell what's coming. And
you didn't quite get the point of this exercise.
If you had asked me 30 minutes ago, I would have said the Padres are going to the World Series, but now they're up 4-2, a chance to go up 2-0, both wins on the road. Maybe that changes, but I think in terms of breaking it down, the record will probably get better next year. With a full Bryce Harper season, and they realized at the deadline that they needed some bullpen arms. They got David Robertson. I think they got another one, couple like minor guys, but if you address that in the offseason and you get a decent bullpen, I ended up saying I see another playoff run next year. Not the division with the Braves and the Mets still there, still going to be strong, but I do see the Phillies as another playoff team, wild card team next year. That's what I see in my blurry ball.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Obviously, they've got Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Bryce Harper, and pretty much everyone else just having their big moments with a Brandon Marsh home run, Nick Castellanos' game-saving diving catch in the 9th inning. Just everyone is making their mark on the playoffs so far for Philly, and there's a chance that they're going to the World Series. So we'll see. Obviously, we're super excited to watch both championship series work themselves out. The team they beat, though, in the National League Division Series was a very trendy pick to win the World Series because they're the defending champs. The Atlanta Braves lost to the Phillies in 4 games after getting the 2 seed and the bye and getting to that momentous NL East division win over the Mets in the last couple of weeks of the year. They ended up it was neither of them that ended up moving on. It was the Phillies, who finished third place in the East. When you look at the crystal ball for the Braves, who definitely disappointed this offseason, or this postseason, what do you see?
I see a juggernaut forming with this team. All of their young talent is locked up for pretty cheap for a long, long time. Most of them, I mean, you got, Matt Olson, Acuna, Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Spencer Strider,
Max Fried.
That's that right there. You put it around anyone. That's a World Series contending team every year. So what I ended up saying, I see another World Series trophy in the next 2 to 3 years, and then maybe 1 to 2 more after that in this current era of Braves baseball. And before we get to yours, crystal ball prediction, question that I just kind of wanted to bring up, just curious to see, did the first round bye mean anything? I mean, we saw, because there was a lot of speculation when the Dodgers and Braves lost that maybe those teams were coming out cold. You even saw players around the league who weren't in the playoffs, like, I'm no expert, I'm not in the clubhouse, but I saw, like, interesting how the teams got byes, came out cold. Interested to see if you mean anything. Obviously, it was also said the Yankees were down 2-1, where it was looking like they could maybe lose as well, and the Astros would be the only first round bye moving on. So the Yankees end up coming back and moving on. So did that first round bye mean anything to you?
I think it's lazy analysis to say that it's because they had a bye, which is why they lose, because the bye helps so much in baseball. I think in other sports like football, other things, you do definitely maybe take a step back physically, where you're not getting hit as hard and like the wild card teams are. But in baseball, you get a chance to rest your pitching for the first time all year. You line up your 1, your 2, your 3 starters against the other teams, 4 or 5 starters sometimes for the first couple games. So I don't think it's the bye. That being said, when you look at a team like the Dodgers, maybe the Braves, maybe even the Mets, as they went in favored over the Padres, if you go into the postseason thinking that you have a leg up, or hearing all the time that you're supposed to win, you're the Braves, you just won 100 games, you're facing the Phillies, who barely eked into the playoffs, you hear the noise, and sometimes it's hard to stay motivated and not feel like the team to beat. The Dodgers for so many years, like when you win the division every year, you win 100 plus games, it's hard to maintain that killer instinct, the we're just going to go out there and beat the brakes off any team that we have to go out there and play. You kind of sometimes feel like, all right, they're gonna roll in and we're gonna do our thing because we're the better team. And sometimes, in especially in baseball, you need that. We're Philadelphia. We got nothing to lose. We're a ragtag group. The 2010 Giants had that. Like, there's just so many teams that have come through the playoffs. Like, even the Red Sox last year, where, we're not supposed to be here, so we have nothing to lose. Let's go beat them. The Dodgers are the team to beat. It's hard sometimes when you're on that bye and you are the team to beat. I think it's hard to, stay motivated and look at it as in, like, we're going to go out there and play the same baseball no matter who we're playing against, no matter what people think of us.
I do agree with that aspect of it, and I also kind of agree to an extent. I didn't like making the excuse like about the first round bye, because previously when you got the bye, it was only you wait out 1 wild card game. Now it was an extra week or a few days compared to last year. But you mentioned how much the bye does for pitching, but also as a hitter, a week off from hitting, at least facing live pitching. And I know they face their own guys in workouts, but baseball is a game of consistency. And the Dodgers also have a reputation of their bats going cold in the playoffs anyway, but the last few years. But maybe that had something to do with it this year. They get a week off from in-game hitting and bats go cold. Baseball is a game of consistency. But like I said, I didn't like to make that excuse. Just curious to see. Maybe we'll see a trend, and I think 1 year is far too small of a sample size to say get rid of the byes. But if we go a few more years with this playoffs system and the 1 and 2 seeds get byes and they keep losing, maybe then it's something to look at. But for now, I agree. I don't think it's a valid excuse.
And I think the one piece that maybe makes a little bit more sense is not that the teams coming off of a bye are at a disadvantage, but the teams that do play in the wild card and get a win, especially in a case like the Padres where they beat a team they weren't supposed to beat, that does give you maybe a little bit jolt of energy of like, hey, we just beat the Mets, we can go in there and beat the Dodgers. Like, that's maybe the one piece that I would listen to about the bye, that the wild card teams might have a slight advantage But that being said, you had to throw out Mike Clevenger against Julio Urias in Game 1, and you lost it. So I just think sometimes it's a matter of how the teams match up, and it's not exactly how the bye shakes out. I don't know if you agree with that part as well, but
yeah, a little bit. And slight diversion. Back to the main segment for today. What do you see in the crystal ball for the Atlanta Braves?
So after picking the Mets to win the NL East all year, I see the Braves running it back as the NL East champions. I'm off the Mets. I'm on the Braves. After winning the World Series last year, they made sure to lock up all that young talent, like you mentioned, and I think it's going to continue to pay off. Unlike other teams, I'm not concerned about this disappointment in the playoffs long term. Like, I'm not looking at it like I look at the Dodgers, because the Braves won the World Series last year because they had that underdog mentality. I think they got caught a little off guard this year with the Phillies rolling in. The Braves, I think, had felt like maybe they made it a little bit more than last year, where they were that ragtag group throughout the entire postseason. And also just had some guys that weren't 100%. Ronald Acuna clearly has been hampered all year. Spencer Strider looked like, I think he was injured. He was only scheduled to go a couple innings, and he just got blasted in his start. So I think that they're going to heal up. They've already got all the young talent. It's going to be a rather stress-free offseason. They've got a decision to make on Dansby Swanson, but other than that, I think they've got a lot of young talent already locked up. They're going to continue to gel together better. The young players will improve, like Michael Harris, Strider, some of the other pitchers. I think that they run it back as NL East champions. I think they're right back with a bye next year. I'm not too concerned about the Braves long term, despite the disappointment.
And maybe you add DeGrom to that. And I think the reason that they haven't locked up Dansby, or maybe part of the reason, is they want to test out some of the big shortstops. So if you end up with one of DeGrom or maybe Trey Turner going back to the East Coast, I mean, just another huge piece that we've heard rumored to this team that would just totally make their young talent and core even better than it currently is. A team that is still in the playoffs, the juggernaut, seems like they're the favorite now to win it, unfortunately. The Houston Astros, they sweep the Mariners in thrilling fashion. It was a sweep, but it was kind of a little closer than it showed to be on paper. It was a come-from-behind win in Game 1 after Verlander got lit up early, and then an 18-inning 1-0 win on the road in Seattle to close it out. So what do you see for this Astros team now and going forward? What's going to happen?
Yeah, when I look into the crystal ball for the Astros, I see a real, true, earned World Series banner hanging in Minute Maid Park next year. I mean, I predicted the Astros to win the World Series coming into the postseason. Everything that has happened so far has only made me more confident in that, because we can talk about the NL all we want, where they've got scrappy teams, but the truth of the matter is, the Astros, I think, are going to the World Series, and all three 100-plus win teams have already lost and been eliminated in the National League. So I think if the Astros get to the World Series, they'll have home field advantage. I think they're going to have an easy shot to win the World Series. And even in the ALCS, if you don't want to look past that, they get a Yankees team coming off an absolutely grueling series. They're going to have no off day going into Game 1. It was a 5-game series for the Yankees. They had to use a lot of pitching. They had a rain out, so they're not going to have that off day going in to face Justin Verlander, of all people, in Game 1. So I think they've got so many great players, with Yordan Alvarez looking like the best hitter in all of baseball sometimes. They've got the best bullpen in the league, one of the best starting rotations in the league. And then they've got, Alex Bregman, who's made the championship series every full season of his career. They've got Jeremy Pena pulling off his best Brandon Belt impression with an 18th inning home run in the postseason. They've just got a lot of guys, including guys like Altuve, who still haven't gotten going. So I think the Astros make it to the World Series. I think they win it, just like I did pre-postseason, which was like the only good prediction I had going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm glad you recognize that portion, because I'm getting slammed on TikTok for my predictions this postseason. And what I see for this Astros team is I see them handling the Yankees, and yes, also winning the World Series this year. I was like trying to justify not picking them, and I was going to make a clever comment, because I was going to piggyback off what you said, and I was going to say, I see a banner too, but the banner says AL champions or something like that. But yeah, for all the same reasons, they're just the best team left. And I think as for the Yankees, obviously they're on paper the toughest competition right now for the Astros going forward. And I think the Yankees would have a chance, but like you said, they're going in so fatigued. The 5-game series, no off days. it's just tough. I mean, and a hard-fought series that they have to come off of. You already saw Nestor go on 3 days rest, and he did great on 3 days rest, but multiple 3 days rest starts in a series when you're going to need them potentially. I mean, you got Verlander versus Tyone in Houston right now for game 1, so if you fall down early, you're going to need more short rest starts, and back-to-back of those, they could get very tough, and it might not go as well as it went the first time around. So yes, for the Astros, see them winning another World Series, as much as I did not want to do it.
Well, yeah, I think it just makes the most sense right now. The team they beat, the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners were kind of dominated by the Astros all year, but they made it a close series, even though it was a sweep. Like you mentioned, they should have had game 1. They were just one hit away in any of the extra innings in the 18-inning game in game 3 to extending the series. So I thought the Mariners, even though they got swept, played pretty well against the Houston Astros. And when I look in the crystal ball at the future of the Mariners, I see a consistent second-place spot in the AL West. And that's not saying that that's not a good thing. The Astros are just so good, I think they're going to win the division. But this year, when we came into the season, we looked at that crop of 3 teams in the West with the Mariners, the Angels, and the Rangers saying, like, how is this going to shake out? And I think the Mariners prove that they're going to consistently be the best team of those 3. I think they're consistently going to be in the playoffs as the second team in the AL West. They didn't quite get over the hump of beating Houston, but Julio Rodriguez only getting better. You've got some young pitching. You've got some pieces. They can even add in free agency if they want. So I think that they're just going to continue to build themselves up. They've got second place, I think, in the AL West locked for the future. Now they're just going to try and gear up to beat the big bad in the Houston Astros. So even though they got swept, I was inspired by the Mariners this postseason, and I think that they're going to continue to improve.
With the Mariners team, I went a little bit more long-term with this one. This one, I understood the assignment of the crystal ball. So for 2 to 3 years, I see them as being in little brother, getting second place. Definite wildcard teams in that time, though, like you mentioned, making the playoffs. And then after that, when Altuve, Bregman, Verlander, they're all getting older, Yuli Gurriel. Astros still have a great young core, but when those guys start to age, I see that as being a tight race for the division for a few years. And then once those guys are completely retired, I think this is the Mariners division. They've got the pieces to do it long term. They're young, they're talented, they're exciting, they're fun. So that's my little plan for the Mariners crystal ball, what I see for them. But this is the start. We saw a long time of them not making the playoffs. I think this is the start of consistent playoff baseball in Seattle, and it's fun to watch. The Mariners have a great crowd, great young, exciting team. Mariners are back in the playoffs, and I think they're here to stay.
You love to see it. You love to see Seattle in the postseason. They had a little bit of a run. I know it didn't go quite as planned, losing to the Astros, but I think the Mariners fans should be proud. Let's get into the Yankees. Yesterday, in a weird series that had some rainouts and was a long series with some walk-off wins and stuff like that, they beat the Guardians in 5 grueling games. And when I look at the Yankees' crystal ball, I don't have them going to the World Series and beating the Astros, but I see Aaron Judge as a Yankee for life. Now, yesterday the video came out after his home run against the Guardians of, kissing the Yankees logo on his jersey, but I've always felt for a long time, I think, that he would stay in New York, because just when is the last time you saw a key Yankees free agent leave New York? Like, I don't remember the last time that I can remember that happening. So I really think that the Yankees are going to look at it like he's one of the best players we've ever developed, one of the best players we've ever had in modern history, coming off one of the best seasons the sport has ever seen. And when you put it that way, how are the Yankees going to let him play elsewhere? Like, how are they going to let him get away? So I know it's fun to think about Aaron Judge joining the Giants or playing in some other uniform, but I just really don't think the Yankees let him leave in free agency. I think that he's permanently going to be a Yankee for the rest of his career. I just don't see him leaving the Bronx.
For me, my crystal ball, I saw something similar. I'm not going to commit to Judge coming back, but I see an offseason where they're going to shell out a lot of money. We saw a disappointing run last year in free agency. They couldn't get Correa. They couldn't get Seager. They were in and on the big names. Couldn't get them in on Freddie Freeman. But like I said, I'm not going to commit to Judge coming back. I love what Aaron Judge is doing right now, and I think it's a great negotiation tactic from the business side, but also just as a fan. I mean, kissing the logo. He said after the game that that was a nod to the English Premier League starting, because the soccer players do that when they score a goal. And all of his New Yorker nowhere shirts that he wears to games, I think it's very comedic, and I think it'll be very funny if he ends up leaving in free agency. But I think even if Judge doesn't come back, I don't think they miss out again. Like I said, I expect them to be big buyers and try and win that World Series. 'Cause like we said, we don't think they're going to get it this year. I think they're going to go buy, maybe that's Correa if he opts out, making a run at him, or Trey Turner or DeGrom, who knows. They're going to throw some money at somebody, and they're going to try and stick around because they're not ready to leave. And New York, they're never ready to leave. But that's what I see for the Yankees.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. And sticking on the free agency side of things, when I look at the crystal ball for the Cleveland Guardians, I see interest from free agents to go play in Cleveland. Now, I don't know if the Guardians are going to spend very much money. They've got a pretty low payroll, but they've given out extensions to Jose Ramirez, which makes me think they might want to. I'm not 100% sure, but the Guardians made the most noise out of any young team this year, the youngest roster, an underdog team, and went toe-to-toe with two American League giants, the Yankees and the Rays, with some roaring crowds in Cleveland. And I think all the noise that they made this year will attract free agents, on top of the fact that they've got an easy path to a division title, they've got that loyal fan base, and they've got one of the best managers in baseball in Terry Francona. So I don't know if the Guardians will spend money, but I think free agents will look at Cleveland as a spot that they want to go play and join a young team that's already made some noise and has the ability to win the division for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, we were very positive and very kind in all of our crystal ball predictions, but not me for the Guardians. I see a regression next year. Maybe a similar record, but I don't see it being enough to win the division. Maybe a wild card team. Even though they're the youngest team, they were helped out by a disappointing season from the White Sox, who we thought were going to win close to 100 games and kind of be the best team in the American League. And I think the White Sox will take back the division like they did last year, I guess, 2021. Under some new leadership, I think the White Sox division, they're going to take it again. I don't think they're going to disappoint next year. I think they're going to learn from it. They were a little banged up and had some disappointing seasons from different guys. So with the Guardians, I see a regression, and I don't think they're going to win the division again.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the AL Central is just so weird. It's kind of like, I feel like it's the NFC East of certain years in the NFL, where they're not the best, and they kind of beat each other up, and it's a really weird division. But I think the Guardians have a shot, and I think free agents will be interested. But that's all we got for the crystal ball segment. Maybe we got to make this a regular on the show when going certain teams maybe this offseason. But I think it's fun to take a step back, look into the future instead of making current predictions, which we know everyone kind of gets wrong. Like, who would have expected the Padres and the Phillies in the National League Championship Series? So maybe we'll just go crystal ball instead of doing predictions, even though some of them are kind of the same thing. But let's get into the final segment. Instead of doing questions, we're going to do a little draft. We're going to do a baseball things draft. So anything to do with the sport of baseball, outside of just teams and specific players, just things, random things to do with baseball. We flipped a coin before the show. Ryan's got the first pick. We're doing a five thing roster. So we're not a snake draft. Ryan's going to go first. I'll go second. We're each going to draft 5 things about baseball.
Yeah, first pick, I got to go driving home with Dad after you just had a good game. Little League, it doesn't matter. Little League, high school, college, driving back from your San Diego Padres versus Phillies game in the championship series. That's number 1 pick.
Yeah, I think that's an under. It's like it's kind of a staple in the league, and it's kind of got the other opposite, where if it's a bad game, you don't want to be driving home, but that's what makes it even better when there is a good game. I'm happy that you didn't take my number 1 pick. Watching a walk-off home run. I don't think there's anything better in all of sports than seeing a walk-off home run, whether it's on TV, whether it's in person. Give me a walk-off home run as my number 1 overall pick.
Wasn't even on my board, so I wasn't going to take it. Second pick, I'm going waking up in the morning to watching Quick Pitch on a day after your team just won.
All right, I like it. Number 2, my second pick, I'm going to go with the smell of a crisp baseball field. You got the cut grass, you've got the dirt, you've got the chalk being laid out. In the morning, on a cold fall day sometimes, the smell of a crisp field is where it's at.
My third pick, I'm going with bobbleheads.
That's it? No analysis, just bobbleheads? I like it. I think bobbleheads are great. They're fun to bobble, clearly. They're fun to collect. They look great. again, you still haven't taken one that's on my list. So I like the way the draft is going out so far. Number 3 for me, and this one's really exciting, is when your team makes a big move, whether it's a free agent, whether it's a trade, you get that notification that your team has made a big move, gotten a player, gotten a pitcher. That's it for me.
4th pick. I'm going to let one slip here. I'm hoping for it to get it back on 5. I'm going with the Marlins man at 4. I think he's just great. When you're watching a game, you're like, hey, there's the Marlins man. So I think it's just cool. He's a cool guy.
When you're so iconic that people copy you to try and look like you on TV, I think that's when you know that you're draft worthy, you're draft eligible. I'm going to combine a couple of things that I have on my board, which is when you get a souvenir at a game from a player. So they're either tossing you up a ball, they're giving you an autograph. I think that's just one of the highlights when you're a kid going to a baseball game.
5th pick, and I'm honestly kind of shocked you let this slip here. It's wiffle ball. Wiffle ball running out my list.
Damn it. I knew I kind of felt like I was missing something. That means I got a lot of things to choose from. And I think I'm going to go right here. Benches clearing brawl. I think that's worthy of my 5 spot. It's got upside where it's some of the most exciting moments that you remember forever, like Jose Bautista and Rougned Odor. Gave me a lot of upside with my 5th overall pick.
There you go. That's our draft. Let us know who won. I think I did. Just pretty easy at that one there. But anyways,
I don't know. I think I won.
Okay. Well, we'll let people decide. I'm sure TikTok will see this. TikTok will decide. But that's been our episode for today. Is there any update? I haven't really checked. It's still 4-2 in the game right now. So we've got some good baseball ahead of us. This is what we see for the 8 teams that were in the division series. What's going to happen going forward for them? That's what we think. Let us know what you think. And Jack, take us home for the episode, unless you got anything else to say.
No, that's all I've got. I just we're going to do more drafts in the future, so leave us some ideas about what we should draft. Well, anything about baseball. I think we thought the next fun one would be fictional baseball characters. So I guess that's maybe next episode. You got something to look forward to. But if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you're leaving a like, leaving a comment, hitting that notification bell, and subscribing to the YouTube. If you're on any other podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're liking the show, leaving a 5-star review for us, and turning on the notification bell there as well. Our socials are up here, and our personal socials are right there below our torso. So make sure you're checking those out. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy baseball, enjoy the championship series, and we'll see you next time around. We've been the Double Play Podcast, and we'll see you next time.